Good morning and welcome to the Vicarage Garden on this beautiful crystal clear day. Not a cloud in the sky, a little bit chilly, but we're just all wrapped up, so we're okay. There's a real sense of spring in the air. We can see that new life is just trying to come out through the frozen ground. I've got over there, you can't see, but I've actually got some daffodils that have come through. They took ages, but now they're there, they're in bloom. We can see the yellow heads on the daffodils. Behind me you can see that the snowdrops are coming. Look on the trees are starting to bud. The grasses, when it's not frozen, it's starting to grow again. It won't be too long before we get the mowers out. New life is really coming, and that's an important theme for us today, and we'll come back to that shortly. I'll tell you a little story about myself. When I first became a priest, I was lucky enough to work in the Lake District in a Christian youth centre, and amidst all of the things that we did with the young people, helping them to explore their lives as they were growing up, and helping to explore their faith and their understanding of God and where they would be going in their lives, we'd make sure that every day we would get them out into the Lake District, and we would be able to take them up the local hills or fells so that they could see and experience something of the beauty of the Lake District all around Keswick, which is where the youth centre was based. Every now and again on my days off I get an opportunity to go up some of the higher hills, some of the mountains, and one day one of my friends came along and said, "Come on Sean, we'll go up and we'll climb Helvellyn." It was a beautiful day, a bit like today, but a little bit warmer. So we went and climbed Helvellyn, but we didn't do it the conventional way. We went up a different side of the hill, where for the first half of the walk we actually followed a stream. So we got a little bit wet as we were scrambling up the stream, which was good fun. And then before we went there, sort of the source of the stream, it then turned out into sort of a rocky face, so we did a little bit of rock scrambling. And then finally, once we'd done that, we got to the top of the mountain, and we were able to get to the peak where we could sit down and have our sandwiches and a cup of tea and just admire the view, because we could see for miles and miles around, and we could even see RAF jets who were flying below us in the valley below us as they were practicing. It was absolutely fantastic. Got a little bit scary at one point because the cloud came in, and when the cloud came in we actually couldn't see anything. I was a bit scared because I wasn't used to this. My friend was alright because he knew what he was doing, and we just waited for the cloud to pass, and then we set off on our journey home. It was a difficult journey for me, I have to admit, because I put so much energy into climbing up the mountain that going down the mountain was actually harder for me because my legs had gone to jelly, and I had to stop every 20-30 metres or so because my legs just wouldn't work, and it took ages to get down. It actually took longer to get down the hill than it did to get up it. But you know, despite that difficulty, despite the hardness of that journey down, it was worth it for what we'd seen at the top, but also for what was at the end of the journey. Because at the end of the journey, my friend took me to a nice Lakeland hotel where we sat in front of a roaring log fire, and we had bacon butties, and they were the best tasting bacon butties I've ever had. Fantastic. A story about Jesus, who went up a hill, went up a mountain, and he went up the mountain with some of his closest friends, some of his closest disciples. And you can imagine that they enjoyed the walk up there. They'd have been chatting about all sorts of things, and then when they got to the top of the hill, things changed a little bit, because suddenly Jesus changed, and he changed physically. It was almost as if he started glowing. And then Jesus' friends saw two other people suddenly appear, and they recognised them as the great leaders of God's people, Elijah and Moses. And they were talking with Jesus. And Jesus' friends, they didn't really understand what was going on. But they couldn't say anything. They were just sort of watching and listening and trying to work out. And then even more scary, suddenly the cloud came in and it covered them. And out of the cloud came this voice that booming down, "This is my son. This is my son who I love. I want you to listen to him." And then the cloud disappeared, Moses and Elijah appeared, and it was just again, Jesus stood there as they recognized him. And the disciples didn't know what to do. And Jesus said to them, you'll understand this, not now, but a little bit later. Okay, so come with me, it's time to go home. And they went home. Now, that was a strange experience for the disciples, probably a strange experience for Jesus as well, but it was a really important experience for Jesus. Because just as I think about my journey down the mountain that was so difficult because my legs had gone, for Jesus it was a difficult journey down the mountain because he knew that the journey he was taking would take him to Jerusalem. And he knew that when he got to Jerusalem, he would have the most awful time waiting for him. At first he'd be welcomed into Jerusalem by the great hero, like the great king that the people wanted. But within a matter of days that all changed. And within a matter of days, Jesus would have been arrested. He would have been beaten. He would have been tried. He would have been condemned to death. And he would have been crucified. And he would die. And Jesus knew that that was coming. So I wonder how he felt as he came down the mountain. I wonder if he actually wanted to stay up the top of the mountain. Well, actually, I think that that voice that Jesus heard was something that would have spurred him on, because he heard his dad, he heard his father say to him, "This is my son, I love you." Jesus knew that he had his father by his side. And God the Father was also speaking to the disciples, to Jesus' friends and the other people, saying, you've got to take notice of my lad. You've got to take notice of Jesus. Because this journey that he's on, it's actually not going to end up with him being dead. There is an ending that is coming beyond death. And the ending that comes for Jesus is resurrection. The ending that comes for Jesus is that he comes down from the cross, he lays in that empty tomb, but then he's raised from the dead. And he's raised from the dead to give us all life with God forever and ever and ever. So on our journeys through life, there's times when it's going to be fantastic, when we'll walk up a mountain, when we'll enjoy the views, when we'll sit down with our friends, when we'll do things, and it'll be great. There'll be other times in our lives when it'll be really, really difficult. Perhaps when our legs feel a bit wobbly, when we can't walk, or if we don't actually want to go somewhere because we know what's coming. But we know that if we listen to Jesus, that if we follow Jesus like his Father says, that there is a good ending. Because that ending is life. Life with God forever. And it's life with God here and now. Jesus helping us to get through good times, through bad times, through middle of the road times. And it's Jesus taking us through these times to the glory of heaven and life eternal with God. Next week we begin a really important time. It's what we call the time of Lent. And for Christians, Lent is our time of spring. The word Lent actually comes from an Old English word that means spring. Lent is a time for us as Christians to look at the areas of our lives where we need to grow, where we need new life to come through. It's an opportunity for us to look at our lives and say, right, what are the things I'm not quite getting right? And to stop doing that. It's a time for saying, there's sometimes I've hurt people, I've done things wrong, I've sinned, I need to say sorry. Let's do that. It's a time for saying, I need to stop looking at myself so much and I need to start looking out at other people. So it's a time perhaps to start helping others or seeing how we can reach out to others. And also it's a time to pray. It's a time each day to try and give a little bit more time to God. Because we are called into having a fantastic relationship with God. And if we have a relationship with anybody, with our families, with our friends, we will get the most of that by spending time with them. And it's the same with God. We get the most of our relationship with God by spending time with Him in prayer and also in our worship when we come together as the family of God. And remember that the time of Lent, it might not always be easy, but it leads us to that fantastic place, which is the end of Jesus' journey on earth, which is resurrection. So Lent will take us to remember Jesus' passion, Jesus' hard times, the time when Jesus was tried, when he was beaten up, when he was sentenced to death, when he was crucified, when he was buried. Lent takes us to all of that, but then it takes us to the very end, and on Easter Sunday we celebrate the resurrection, new life with Jesus. So let this time of Lent be a good one for you. Let it be a fantastic journey. Walk with Jesus. Spend time with Jesus. Think about the things that you need to change in your lives. Think about the things that you need to do. Think about how you can reach out to others. And think about how you can give a little bit more time to God every day, so that not only can you get to know God and Jesus more, but God and Jesus can get to know you more.